Alrighty, hello and welcome to 4mation's first webinar of 2024. And I guess whether you're on your own entrepreneurial journey or whether you're considering a software project or platform build for your business, today's webinar is going to be a great place to learn from one of the best. Today we're going to be exploring the extremely successful career of serial entrepreneur Rafael Neisten, founder and CEO of market-leading Proptech business, Proptech Labs. For those of you who don't know Proptech Labs, they now serve over 2,500 real estate agencies, over 5 million property owners and tenants, 60,000 trades, 18,000 property managers, and more than 13 million completed inspections. It's a genuine disruptor of the property industry and winner of the Proptech Award for the most innovative property and facilities management solution. And just as context on their size and progress, in May last year, they acquired one of their competitors for $8 million and are now going hard at the $21 billion property management market. On a personal level, I've known Raf for more than 5 years now, and a couple of things that really resonate with our culture here at 4mation. The things that I admire about Raf are his just relentless passion, get shit done mentality and energy, and his ability to cut through the hype and the noise to get to where real value lies. And I guess he's just got this willingness to experiment, constantly learn, and constantly improve. So, yeah, without further ado, welcome, Raf.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it. Good to be here. What a lovely introduction. I couldn't have said it better myself.
We've structured today's webinar into 4 sections to just extract as much value for anyone who's considering a software platform build, pitfalls to avoid, best practice tips across, firstly, coming up with an idea and getting to product market fit. Secondly, just the practicalities of design, development, testing. Thirdly, all the things around the build that often get forgotten, things like R&D and cybersecurity and insurance. And fourthly, ongoing innovation and the hot topic of the day, month, or year, which is AI. For anyone who wants to submit questions, please feel free to do that throughout. There's a QA section, and we'll leave 10 minutes at the end to answer as many of those questions as we possibly can. But yeah, let's jump into the first section, which is just coming up with an idea and getting to product market fit. How did you come up with the idea? How did you start?
Yeah, look, I suppose we started a long time ago. So a bit of context, I sold my last company, which was in the medical software space. And I decided that was it for me in software. I'm done. I'm retiring. And 3 weeks later, on Boxing Day, I was sitting in an Officeworks free boardroom, because it was the only place open, discussing the idea of what this could possibly be. And we started with something completely different, which was matching people that were looking to sell or lease with people that were looking to buy or rent a property. As it turns out, that really wasn't a great idea. But whilst that was building and while we were thinking about that concept, I sort of have a number of investment properties. And when I sort of stopped working, I started to realize that my property manager was charging me around about $490 for every single maintenance request, whether it was changing a light globe or a power point or a filter on an air conditioner. And I thought, this is very strange. So I found out subsequent to that it was going to a relation, and they were making some good money off me. But because I was too busy, I never really paid much attention. And I thought, geez, there has to be a better way. So we pivoted towards away from that other business, and we moved into the maintenance style of business, where we looked at the workflow of what a property manager has to do to deal with maintenance and all the stakeholders, the owners, the tenants, and the trades. And we realized it was highly complicated and really difficult because there's so many different touch points. So if a property manager manages 100 properties, there's about 2.7 jobs per year that they have. So if they've got a portfolio of 100 or more, they've got 20 touch points a job. It's about 5,400 touch points just on maintenance, and there's 45 other things that they need to do as well. So it became apparent to us that it was really something that was a significant problem. And when we dug deeper in and spoke to some of the people in the industry, some people were saying, one lady summed it up perfectly. And she said, maintenance to me is like having a glass of water. It's full, I have a drink, I put it back down, my glass is full again. So it never ends and it never stops. So we basically embarked on building what was, or what is, probably the most advanced maintenance solution for property management in our region, if not globally, for residential. And we grew and grew and grew on that basis for solving that problem.
And to what extent did you sort of involve your users in the development process? To what extent were you kind of coming up with ideas independently versus either user-generated ideas or user-validated ideas?
Yeah, so I suppose it was a combination of the two. We did a lot ourselves based on my co-founder, his experience in real estate as well. So we did a lot together on building it. My strength was building software. His was in real estate. So we spent a lot of time putting all of that together, but we also had the feedback of people and we listened. What we subsequently found out, however, is that everybody does something completely different. So what we thought was, yeah, this is a pretty vanilla way of structuring this platform. It wasn't at all. It wasn't even close to being like that, because ultimately a lot of the property management businesses are small to medium businesses, and they have their own flows, their own style, their own way of doing things. So when we launched the platform, we ended up scrambling and having to build out so many more workflows, and we literally have hundreds upon hundreds of workflows depending on the different style and way that the agency works. So we listen to the agencies, we listen to the property managers, we listen to the business owners, but we also had our own internal thoughts and ideas, because as Henry Ford once said, great quote, if people had asked me what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So sometimes you've got to build things for people that they don't necessarily know exist as yet.
Yep. And I think that journey is not unusual in that it's, it's very rare that every assumption about a SaaS product or platform is right at the initial, it's that
mostly it's not. Mostly it's not right, mate. Mostly it's wrong. So, or it's right to a very small degree, and then you get the real people using it, and you get the real feedback, and then you realize, oh, we still have a long way to go.
How did you win your first customers?
Oh, that was great fun. One of our first customers was actually the biggest privately owned property management agency in Australia. So, whilst that was a fantastic win, it meant that we had to do a lot of scrambling because they were obviously sizable and scalable. So we put a lot of effort in building for the largest privately owned, or the largest group we could find. And they were managing about 25,000 properties. So it gave us the ability to get a customer and to get that product market fit at the enterprise level of town, which is often the opposite way. Normally you go for a few small ones and then you build up and you build up. We sort of took the philosophy, let's go for the biggest first, because what they do can flow downhill to the other people because they've got more sophisticated systems and processes and things of that nature. So yeah, we started with the biggest and we worked our way back from there, and they're still a customer today, more than 6 years later.
Nice. And I guess just if you have to summarize that phase of getting to product market fit, what's kind of your number one piece of advice you give to someone starting out in terms of getting to that place where you've got a product that fits?
Yeah, well, I suppose it depends heavily on the market that you're in. The reality is you think you have a product market fit. Everybody thinks they've got a product market fit until they actually take it to market, and then they realize they have a product market fit, but it's much smaller than what they actually anticipated. I mean, my sort of area that I've spent most of my time in is in B2B rather than B2C. So I speak more around the B2B market. If you find an industry where it's sort of very antiquated processes and very complex, like medical or property management or whatever the case is, it's much less in terms of less competitors, because it's a very difficult thing and it's generally a niche market. But I suppose trying to find product market fit is not necessarily just building out all the features that you possibly can think of in a day. It's how you're actually solving the problems of the people that you're trying to service. Because unfortunately, a lot of the time, people solve problems that don't actually exist in reality. You ultimately want to try and find product market fit by making sure that you target the people that are actually looking for a solution to a problem that they actually have, rather than something that you think is a problem, which turns out it's not a problem. And you spend a lot of time and money and unfortunately don't find that product market fit.
Yeah, getting a solution that actually is a problem that clients can see and are willing to pay for a solution for is
and that's a very valid point as well, Dane. Willing to pay for. So obviously people are very price sensitive, and unless you can show significant value, it's very difficult to extract revenue from people. So you've got to really focus on what is your problem, rather than saying, here's a raft of features. What value do you bring to the table when it comes time to working with those particular people?
Certainly with our clients, we're always advocating, more commonly than not, it's about encouraging them to build less features initially to validate more cheaply and faster, rather than building out this laundry list of what they assume the solution is going to be over 12 or 18 months. It's let's find a few features, let's prove that value customers are willing to pay for. Then evolve based on customer feedback, because you just end up, the likelihood of success increases because you got some dry powder post initial go live.
Correct.
Cool. Just a reminder for everyone, if you do have questions, again, please submit them by the Q&A section. We'll answer them towards the end there. Let's jump into topic number 2, which is just the practicalities of design, development, and testing. This is obviously a subject very close to my heart, having seen thousands of these projects over the years. How did you start out? Did you hire developers internally? Did you use contractors or an agency? And tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, look, I suppose I've been doing this for about 20 years, so it's been a multitude of different styles and types. But in the latest project, we started off with an agency. The agency was based offshore. Why did we choose offshore rather than onshore? Because obviously our budget at the time was not extending to the local rates at that particular point in time. There was a massive shortage of developers in region, and we couldn't find anyone for love or money. So we contracted to an agency offshore, and we had some challenges, let's put it that way, quite a few of them, in fact, to build that MVP. So we had an idea, and I think the flavor of a lot of agencies that I've had the dealings with overseas, especially, is they will sell the dream until you have no capacity to pay for that dream anymore. So unlike what you previously said, where let's go for something small and try and get proliferation in market, they have the opposite approach, where it's like, let's build as much stuff as we possibly can, as quickly as we can, get it to market. And then unfortunately that has its downsides as well, because ultimately, is it architected properly? Has it been put through the paces? Is it set up to scale, or is it just something quick and cheap and easy to put together? So you end up with every side's got its own coin, where you go, well, do I use an agency, or do I find people, or do I do it myself, or do I start my own software company? But the agency is a simple, easy way to get started, to validate and verify, and then you can make decisions that you need to from there on out.
Yep. What are some of what sort of tips would you have for other entrepreneurs or businesses considering hiring either developers or an agency? What are kind of the traits you look for, the characteristics of the ones that have been successful versus those that have been the opposite?
Yeah, well, I suppose cultural alignment is really important. So if you're a go-getter and you want to get things done, and you're driven, and you want to make a success, you need to surround yourself with those sorts of people. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, the sales and the hype will come to you with these, yes, this is what we do, and here's what we've done. And in reality, it's different. And unfortunately, a lot of people that have gone down the path of software development, who aren't software developers, don't know how to read code, or aren't technical, they end up in a situation whereby they have entrusted someone who has essentially built something that isn't what they wanted, and is now asking for more money, or they've got a team of people that are mediocre at best in terms of their ability to deliver on technology. And as a result of that, they end up in a position where they've expended a significant amount of money, and they haven't actually received what they had hoped for. And they, in some cases, can't even take it to market, or they can't even use the code. And there are some unscrupulous operators, as there are in every industry. And as a result, you are significantly out of pocket, in which case sometimes you can't even fulfill the idea and the dream that you had to build your software business at that point. But trying to align with the values that you have. And one of my developers, who I've worked with now for a very, very long time, he basically summed it up. He said, if this business fails because you didn't find product market fit, then that's okay. But if the business fails because I didn't do my job properly, then it's a shame on me, and it's a shame on my family. And you've got that mentality that can drive code. Yes, most businesses fail. That's the reality of life. But if you've got someone with an attitude like that, you're going to go as far as you possibly can.
You don't want to fail because of poor execution. Like the idea might not work out, but you don't want to fail because you just didn't actually properly be able to test the idea because you didn't deliver it. I think a couple of things we advocate for when we're talking to potential clients is just meet the actual team that you're going to be working with. You'll learn a lot from a discussion with them, rather than just a sales front end that might look really shiny. And I think the other thing is to speak to clients like you that have worked with an agency or that, that person of people or team that can kind of give you the insight as to what that experience is.
And I suppose it has to be said as well, if you're developing something that's highly technical or highly difficult, that you need to articulate your business vision, and someone doesn't speak English as a first language, it can be very, very difficult to articulate your business requirements, in which case you're destined to fail from day one. Not necessarily being the cheapest is the winner in these situations, and just finding someone off Gumtree or Fiverr or Freelancer, it's not going to guarantee success either. So, but if you're building something simple, that might be helpful. And there's obviously a lot of tools to translate language these days, but going and seeing the team, seeing how they operate, where are they actually located, who are you, what have you done, who have you built projects for, etc. Those things can be quite helpful in ascertaining whether they're going to be good. Are they always going to be good even if you do all of that? Not really, but you can try your best.
And you've encountered some of the challenges that we hear of from other clients that we've inherited from elsewhere as well, that around sort of IP ownership and source code control. Can you maybe speak to some of those pitfalls to help the kind of viewers today avoid those same challenges?
Correct. So look, I mean, you can have all of these NDAs and you can have all of your frameworks and agreements and you can have all the signatures you want in the world. But if you've got a developer that's offshore or a team of developers that's offshore, you've got to navigate a legal system. You have zero skill, zero insight, and most likely you will fail. So you'll spend good money after bad money pursuing people. That comes to fruition where you basically have been quote unquote ripped off. And they haven't delivered, or they've taken your money and they haven't done anything. But worse, and this actually happened to me, we had a developer, paid the money, built a great product for us in market. Product was growing, was doing great, building, fantastic. And one day he said, "It's my code. And what are you going to do about it?" So what do you do about it? There's some creative ways you can think depending on countries that they're in, but on the whole, if they hold you hostage and say, "Well, now it's my code, and if you want, you can rent it off me." It's like, well, hang on, you've been paid all this money for this period of time. Why? And these are some of the pitfalls, because they're not here, or they're in a jurisdiction where you have zero control, zero chance. And even if you do, it's going to be years, and they hold you to hostage. So, we were creative in being able to excise ourselves from that situation, and we got our code back, and everything was somewhat back to normal. But it was months and months of delays, and not knowing if we could support our customers, and not knowing if he put something in the code that was going to stop everything, excuse me, etc. So it's very, very difficult, because ultimately that is your IP, that is your business, and if you don't have control of that, or you don't understand it, it makes life a very difficult place.
It's your core asset, right? Look, shameless sales plug. Obviously, information, our clients own the code, so that's one thing to get out there. But what about tools? In terms of platforms or tools that you kind of depend on to drive effective development and testing and that sort of thing. Scoping, what tools do you?
I mean, look, there's some great. Everything's pretty good these days. You've got Jira, obviously the framework with you. I've used Jira for as long as I've been doing software. It really helps, because it helps you to articulate your stories. It helps you to plan. It helps you to run roadmaps, and it gives the developers something they can log time against, etc. So you've got visibility over the platform, and it's not difficult to understand and difficult to learn. A lot of courses that you can do around that. You've got things like Figma or Zeppelin, Miro, all these tools to put all your wireframes and stuff together. There's a whole heap of stuff coming out with these new AI plugins that build websites for you and build wireframes for you with a couple of lines on a prompt. So this stuff is changing at a rapid pace. But I suppose my philosophy is always to use something that's tried and tested. So .NET, C#, SQL, Microsoft Basic. It's been around forever. It's got good support. It's got good frameworks. It's got good libraries. Everything plugs into it, rather than going, well, here's the latest shiny language that someone has picked up. Because ultimately, then how do you scale that if it doesn't have what you need it to have? And then you've got to have specialized developers. or even some of the people that we work with, they've still got products that are in basic. So they can't find developers that work in those products anymore. So I think, just keeping it vanilla and keeping it simple and keeping the tools that everybody knows. We have a tendency in software to try and say, oh, we're cutting edge and we're going to use the latest and the greatest and let's try this out, and fine. But at the end of the day, you've still got to run a business, and vanilla, albeit being vanilla, it works, but there's a lot of people that can do it. There's a lot of talent that can work with that technology, not having to be then reliant on, oh, well, geez, how do we get someone to help us? No one knows this language anymore, or no one knew it, or whatever the case is. Then you work with one set of developers and they say, oh, yeah, use this. The next set of developers come in and go, oh, that's all a bit rubbish. We need to start again from scratch. So you can never win in that regard. But keeping it vanilla, keeping it simple, using industry tools works a treat.
Yeah, I think being different for the sake of being different is a path to a lot of pain and expense. And if you can, we kind of advocate just build uniquely for the bits that are going to create genuine competitive advantage that clients care about. But yeah, for everything else, be standard. It's lower cost. It's more adaptable. You've got more flexibility. It's for all of those reasons you described. And then that goes for both the tools that you use and the features that you build.
I think so.
Build for your competitive differentiation for everything. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And just mistakes during that design, development, and testing phase. Obviously, the level of experience you've got, you obviously had the opportunity to make plenty along the way. Are there any? Are there a couple of mistakes that you could kind of tips for young players that you would suggest? Avoiding.
Right, mistakes are plentiful. They're everywhere, and the more you work on the cutting edge of technology, the more mistakes you'll end up making. I think one of the key things is to just decide on the framework that you're going to use from day one, and have a lens to keep that updated. So, we acquired a company, and when we acquired the company, when we were doing our due diligence, we looked at the tech stack, and they hadn't updated their framework for 12 years, right? So if you're going to start somewhere and then continuously update it, right, it's painful because it takes away from your actual development. It takes away from the time that you want to spend building out features and your bug fixing and all your other cool things. It takes time. But the thing is, if you don't do it, you end up missing whole sets of frameworks, and then you can't upgrade anymore. You're basically isolated on a framework from years and years, and you have to restart again when you want to do stuff. And you miss out on all the enhancements. You miss out on the speed improvements and the security improvements and things of that nature. So that's one thing. And, I've been guilty of it because I've been desperately trying to get features out in another business. I just don't worry about it. Just leave it. We'll fix that later on. Fixing it later on becomes more problematic than not. So you just need to always have a lens to that in the roadmap. And the other thing, I suppose, is that, a lot of mistakes that you make are not necessarily from the design or the development phase, but from not getting it right from a client requirement in the beginning. So you essentially waste a lot of time building stuff that really didn't hit the mark, that really wasn't what the customer was looking for, but it was more what you thought was right for the customer. Or you release a feature that simply is not something that anybody wants to use, and then you just have to de-ship that at a point in time. And the other thing is, customers will always say, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, I'd love to use that. And when you give it to them, they don't use it. Or they say, oh, yeah, I'll get around to it. I'm too busy. I've got other things to do. So, there's so many pitfalls, I suppose, in relation to how it's been designed and how it's been developed. But yeah, it's very hard to get it right 100% of the time, even if you've got great pedigree and you've got great ideas. Point in case, we did a proof of concept with AI, which I know we're going to touch on a bit, where it helps tenants to send maintenance requests through. But rather than it helping the tenant, it told the tenant how to fix the leaking tap, which is ideally what we don't want it to do. So once again, you learn from all of these things, even with the best intentions and the best ideas. Sometimes they don't come to fruition from a development standpoint.
Just looping back to your comment on the discipline around upgrading frameworks, I agree that's so important. And I think that really comes with maturity, because it is so easy to always be focused on the new shiny feature or the new thing that's going to break through. But that sort of fundamental platform maintenance stuff that means that everything else is efficient to develop is huge. But yeah, it comes from kind of having those competent advisors around you to kind of I just recommend that.
Well,
path.
the shiny features, the shiny features don't work well when the platform's not stable and is crashing, and all sorts of memory leaks and smashing your database because you've got some terrible queries written in there, and there's
just deferring all that technical debt as it gets bigger and bigger, and everything just grinds to a slower halt. You're wondering why development takes so long and why
correct.
all these errors. Yeah. And then I think on your second comment, just around putting out new features, and some of them not. I think just always trying to find that cheapest way to test or validate something, whether that's with prototyping, whether that's user interviews, whether that's putting a feature to a segment of customers. But there will be a failure rate regardless, and it's kind of not assuming that every feature you launch is going to be a success. Just that fundamental understanding. So,
I think the other thing just to note as well, Dane, is that people have now a concept of let's do a prototype. Let's take the absolute minimum viable product to a customer. That may be all well and good in the B2C space. In the B2B space, they will generally either not trust you that you can actually do it because they've heard this story many, many times before about what people say they're going to do, but don't do. Or alternatively, if they're big enough, they'll say, thank you, that's a great idea, and they'll roll it out themselves. So I think that's also a dilemma in terms of the B2B space, is if you don't have enough or you're not well prepared, but you have a fantastic idea, it may very well be scooped up. And I can guarantee no one is going to sign an NDA that is going to potentially use your product. So just as a segue, that if you say you've got all these things and you don't have them, and then you don't deliver at a certain time, you're not trusted, or it's an opportunity for them to do it themselves, because most of the time they're very highly motivated and highly profitable, so that they can utilize those funds in terms of doing what you're proposing to do. So it's just a bit of caution there as well.
You've got to genuinely be a better option than build yourself one of those larger corporates.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's jump to kind of all of the things around development. So we kind of see doing your development well, all of the things we've spoken about so far, really important. But then there are some elements around it that just often get forgotten, or people don't realise 4 or 5 years in that these opportunities exist. But things like the R&D tax incentive and other government incentives in terms of helping fund project. To what extent have you found that useful? R&D funding for.
Yeah, I think that, look, the R&D tax incentive, I think, it stems from a completely different world. This was for agriculture and oil and gas and things that not related to software. And I think one of the big pitfalls, which was shown by AusIndustry and the ATO in times past, was that if you're not truly doing experiments and you're not creating hypotheses and the determined outcome is success rather than it being unknown, then that's not really R&D. So, if someone can jump online and do a Google and say, how did I do this? Yeah, okay, this is how the 3 steps you need to do. It's not R&D. So it is a bit of a minefield in some ways. And obviously you've got, only onshore resources, and what projects are you running? What was your hypothesis, etc. So keeping notations and stories and what did you do and what failed and what was successful, and that the fact that you just had no idea if it was going to work or not, and most of the stuff we've done is exactly like that. But if you're just doing something that's just business as usual, unfortunately that doesn't qualify for those R&D tax incentives, and most people don't realize that, and some people bank on that money coming through, but then once they speak to an advisor, they end up in a different position essentially, which is not where they had hoped they would be. We were pretty fortunate many years ago. We had an opportunity in the UK, and the UK, they had some advisors come out and talk to us about what the UK tax incentive scheme was, and it was far more beneficial to us. So we set up a company in the UK because we have customers there anyway, and we were able to claim the R&D tax incentive in the UK, which was much more beneficial for us. They've changed the legislation since, so it's not as good as it once was, but it's still available. But the ask and the take is, if you can get export market development grants or R&D grants or even small business grants, anything you can get to help you to grow and sustain your business, fantastic. The reality is, the more assistance you can get, the more money you can get, the more you can put back into the research and development and to build your product and to build product market fit and to get more clients and to expand into a global capacity. It's a fantastic thing where you can get help, of course, but obviously only with the parameters of the rules Otherwise, you'll end up in a lot of trouble and a lot of pain.
Yeah, and having worked with a bunch of those R&D claims over the years, like it's not simple for anyone starting out. The likelihood that you're going to be able to fill in your own application accurately and with confidence that it's actually going to work is pretty slim. So I think both you and I would kind of use the same partner or advisor for all that stuff. Just the right advice makes a huge difference. And reducing risk and giving you confidence that your claim is actually for the right stuff. And what is it, 42 cents in a dollar or something that you get back? If you can get that back on a $1 million build, that's a significant amount of revenue pump back into product development or other innovations. So.
Definitely.
And cyber insurance, cyber security. How do you think about those? What's been your approach? Because obviously it varies for businesses at different stages, I guess, of their evolution. If you're a startup with 0 customers, very different approach to that than if you're providing a payments platform to a Fortune 500 companies. How do you think about that, cybersecurity and cyber insurance?
I mean, look, cyber insurance seems to be the thing you need to have these days, but it seems to be more and more expensive given the amount of hacks and the amount of drama that's been caused of late, with the larger organizations. But I suppose, you've got to look at what you're doing and is it going to be something of value to someone who wants to hack you? Like if you're not storing payment information or credit cards, and you're a shopping service or you're doing something simple like that, you've probably got less vector of people being interested in what you've got. Whereas if you're housing confidential medical information or you're housing bank account information or things that can actually attract someone that are interested in that, that's definitely something you need to look into. I mean, most of the big players now in terms of the infrastructure providers like AWS and Microsoft and Google, I've got a lot of these plug and play type situations and they're monitoring their network 24/7. We opted to go for platform as a service rather than infrastructure as a service so that we don't have to have any infrastructure people. That's handled all by our providers. They're 24/7, they're patching, they're updating, they're maintaining, and we're just developing code. But it's always in our psyche, it's always in our lens, it's always something that keeps us up at night time as business owners, because ultimately you're the custodians of this data and you want to make sure it's as safe as possible, and that their data is protected in relation to what you do. So using those frameworks and using all of the tools that are available to you off the shelf these days, it's pretty helpful. But the weak links, I suppose, from a cybersecurity perspective, are still people that click on emails and links that they don't realize, and all of a sudden someone's infected the entire network. They're on your servers, and they're doing bad things. It's much less likely that they're going to come in through the front door. It's much more likely that they're going to come through the back door and I think that was the case in the Medibank issue. Someone clicked the link, and the proliferation of that, I suppose, is getting more and more. There was a case recently where someone had a deep fake of the CEO, including his voice print, and I think they sent about $20 million out. And it was all done
surprisingly easy to create now using the tools that are available. Just a little bit from someone, and you can train a model to look pretty compelling.
Correct. I mean, I'm not even here at the moment. This is all being done by AI, so I don't even know. I'm away at the beach, I think, in my mind. So,
definitely agree with I guess with cybersecurity in particular, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and that's what often hackers are looking for. Is where is that easiest opportunity to get you? But I guess we really advocate for clients to think about security just in a proactive way. So whether that's independent penetration testing, whether that's having a response or a process if you do have a ransomware attack, being proactively prepared for what your parameters might be or what your process is, so you're not considering that when it happens, because obviously emotions are high when that occurs, stress levels are high, and it doesn't necessarily facilitate the best decision making. So a proactive posture on that stuff, I think, is
and you can look at things like role-based access and multi-factor authentication and things like that, where you've got these extra layers. I mean, look, there's still tools to help you, but at least if you deploy those sorts of things where you've got to get a code off your phone or you've got to do some other proactive step in order to get into the platform or to access servers, and then keeping the server access down to an absolute minimum. Who absolutely needs access to this, who absolutely needs access to database. you know, then you can put things on your database. So, you know, you can put those security measures on where you've got always encrypt and you've got it's at rest and the data structure is protected so that if someone wants to get access to it, it's gibberish. They can't do anything with it. So just trying to think through those preventative measures. Is everyone 100% safe? No. We've seen it all around the world, the biggest of the big. And, you know, startup or scale ups, it's a massive challenge. It's a massive problem. The only thing that goes in our favor is we're not that big, or we don't have information that most people are actually interested in. So there's little less point in hacking someone like us rather than trying to go after Commonwealth Bank or, you know, a big telco or something like that, where they're much more susceptible. And, you know, most startups and scale-ups couldn't afford to pay any ransoms anyway. So, you know, it's quite a low chance of getting any money from people like that are in the space.
Yeah, we kind of think of it in two vectors, like one being just how secure, because security isn't the yes or no. It's kind of, you know, from least to most, how secure are you? And then how attractive a target are you from not attractive at all? So like you're going to be, you're tax free. So yeah, setting the posture accordingly. I can see a bunch of questions flowing through for Q&A, so that is good. We'll get to those in a couple of moments. So if you do want to submit questions, please feel free. Get to those in a couple of minutes. But our final topic for the session is just ongoing innovation and AI. And it sounds like you had a number of pivots along the way and features that worked and didn't work. So it's probably answered part of this question. But yeah, what do you sort of advise startups to do in terms of budget allocation for, you know, initial build versus ongoing innovation, or pivots and features and changes post initial go live?
Yeah, I suppose an interesting stat on that is I went to SaaStr, which is the world's largest SaaS conference in San Francisco last year. And one of the VCs, one of the key VCs on stage said that last year they funded 78% of all their investments were in something that had the word AI in it. So if you're not doing AI now, you may struggle to actually make any money or get any investment, because this is what people are looking for. You know, the OpenAI ChatGPT, I think that really opened Pandora's box, and now everyone's in an arms race and everybody's AI and everybody's doing something in AI. It's much like when blockchain came out, everyone was a blockchain or an NFT expert or something. But I think in this particular case, it really is going to revolutionize the way that people work. And if you can apply the frameworks, it's great. What I will say, though, is that a lot of the time, the costs actually outweigh the benefits. So, you know, because they are so expensive, these models are so huge, in order for you to actually do stuff, it's in some cases, it costs you more than what you're getting from your customers. So it's a bit of a balance in relation to it. But, you know, I would argue features are really important. Cutting edge is really important. AI is really important. But look at what industry you're in. Look at who you're trying to target. Are you from a traditional world? Are they scared of AI? Are they scared AI is going to take their job? Is AI actually going to do anything? Is it going to help your platform? Because all of these things, people say, I'm AI, I'm AI. Okay, great. What is it? Yeah, okay, you've got a chatbot that you built from an open AI framework, from an API. That took 5 hours. Okay, where's the IP? What are you going to do to protect yourself? Because anybody can do that now. You don't have to have any machine learning or data science. You don't have to be a PhD. You just need to be able to simplify what's already somebody's done. So will that provide value? Will that provide you a longevity? Probably not. So yeah, features and changes and go lives and AI, and you know, it's a balancing act. You've got to build the base, but then you've got to have some wow factor as well. And you know, if you're in a competitive industry, more likely than not, your competitors have got it, or you could also be knocked off, you know, by someone else doing it.
I think those platforms that are really disciplined about continually tying it back to business value for the customer, actual use cases, as opposed to fancy tech for the sake of fancy tech. I think, fancy tech can be a great way to maybe come up with an idea, but ultimately, if it doesn't tie back to a great user experience or genuine business value, it's kind of innovation theatre as opposed to actual value being.
Or it's not solving a problem. It's just saying, hey, I've got a chatbot. Whoop-de-doo. Who cares? Everybody's got a chatbot. Okay, fantastic. But yeah, if you're trying to build something of longevity, it has to have some intrinsic value to customers as well.
Yep. And so obviously you've got quite a large platform now. How do you generate new feature ideas? What drives that backlog?
Yeah, so I suppose we get a lot. We've got customer panels where we work with customers and they provide ideas, but it's also stuff that people see that's in the general market. So a great example, we had I had an experience. I was in Indonesia. I was talking to my Grab/Uber driver on the app. He was speaking Bahasa Indonesia. I was speaking English, and we were able to have this great conversation. Whereas if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have been able to speak to him and he wouldn't have been able to speak to me. So it was fantastic. And I thought, geez, this would be awesome to apply. So now when a tenant goes to submit a maintenance request with us, they have about 18 languages that they can choose from. They write in their native language and it converts it into English so that the people on the other end get it. Now, is it 100% perfect? No. But is it better than trying someone understanding what a native speaker is saying to a non-native speaker? And that's sort of what we do. So it's a combined approach. You know, you listen to customers to a degree, but you also have to look at the macro environment because people are used to having seamless experiences. They're used to using Amazon, watching Netflix, going and catching an Uber. So if you provide a frictionless experience, great. If you provide an experience that's full of friction and drama and they have to click 17 boxes to get somewhere, inevitably you'll be thrown out. So the ideas have to be born not only from your existing clients, but also from what you're seeing out in the market and what consumers generally are used to. They're not willing to accept 1985 UI anymore. They want something that looks nice on their eyes. You know, they even complain, oh, you don't have dark mode. Why don't you have dark mode for? So, you know, these sorts of things, it's becoming an expectation that you have to have that stuff. And if you don't, people just won't use your platform.
I love the use case around translation. Just it also has the opportunity to just unlock so much talent that would otherwise be constrained by a language barrier.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the fact is, you know, if someone has a language barrier, what they're going to do is do what they've done before. They're going to send an email. And, you know, in the case of a property manager, they say, my tap is leaking. And they say, well, where is it leaking? Is it inside? Is it outside? Is it heavy? Is it flooding? Is it going to be an emergency? All of these things, there's so many variables that go in and back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. No one understands. Then they send the wrong contractor out. You know, and then the owner has a bill that they don't want to pay and the agency has to pay it because they sent the wrong person. So we're trying to, wherever possible, use technology to help everybody, not just use technology for the sake of using technology.
I think a lot of the AI audio transcription and sort of conversational audio AI, you know, obviously puts a lot of the IVR bank systems of years gone by to shame, and it really is a genuinely good user experience as opposed to those really clunky, unless you say one of these three words you don't get anywhere style IVRs fast.
Yeah, I mean, I tried one the other night though. I got sent a link where they've got conversational AI in this and a phone call, and I put my phone number and name on the website, and it called me up, and I had a 10-minute conversation with this bot, and it was perfect every time. Funnily enough, it also, I said, tell me how much does this cost? And they said, you can check the pricing page out. It's under the About Us section. And I went to the About Us section. There was no pricing. And I said, I just went to the About Us section and there's no pricing. And the bot came back and said, oh, okay, let me check. Oh, sorry, we've recently updated our website. It is now located here. And I went and there was the price. So I finished the call. I put a different name and a different phone number. I called back and I asked about the pricing, and it had updated itself to know where the new pricing was. So this is customer service, and it was a fantastic customer service experience. Other than talk, you know, you call banks, you call, you know, travel companies like Qantas, you call insurance companies. It's awful. You push this.
Up your hour on hold to get through to something. Yeah.
Say your name. What's your name? What are you? It's like, God help me. It's torture. So as a startup or a scale up, you can't afford to have customer interactions like this because they'll just walk. Unfortunately, with travel and banks and insurance companies and the government, you don't have a choice. You have to settle for poor customer service experiences. Whereas, you know, if you do that properly, like that AI bot was fantastic, amazing.
I'll give you two rapid fire questions, and I know we can expand on these, but I'll try and I'll challenge you to give us the elevator pitch version. But just managing your backlog of features, how far out do you manage your backlog? How far out do you plan that feature set?
Yeah, so normally we like to do 3-month roadmaps because that we find is sufficient. I mean, the thing is, when you're growing and you're scaling, roadmaps seem to be a little bit redundant. because you've got so much feedback coming from users that you need to incorporate and you need to build. Often you're on fire consistently. So you've got one fire after another you're trying to put out. So the roadmap somewhat disappears into the background. But I think it's important to have a roadmap, so at least you've got an idea of where you're going. But yeah, I think any more than 3 months when you're in the startup phase is completely wasteful, because literally you will be building at scale and you'll be trying to solve a million different issues and problems that arise during that time. So it's good to have the themes, but it's also good to have some flexibility around those themes as well.
Nice.
Was that fast?
And final one, sorry, Raf.
Was
Final
that
one,
fast
just
enough?
on, sorry, just a final question on AI. I know you've touched on some features, translation and that sort of thing. Yeah, is there anything else, any other ways that you're applying AI internally, and how do you sort of see AI's future more broadly?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere, and it's getting better and better. When we first started using it, we were absolutely on the cutting edge, and when we started to use it, all the marketing materials didn't actually match any of the API or Swagger documentation. So there were things that
From the AI third parties that you're integrating with.
correct, even the open AIs and the Microsofts of the world, they talked about all these fantastic things that didn't actually exist in reality. So $2 trillion companies are still faking it until they make it. It's not just related to startups and scale-ups. But I think there's so much that's happening in that space, and there's so much money that's getting poured into it. And the frameworks are fantastic, and hopefully the costs come down, because they're still a bit prohibitive for most of the things that are done. But from a standpoint in our business, we have millions and millions of maintenance transactions that have occurred. We know how much things cost. We know areas that they're located in. We process 2.2 million pages of invoices in 12 months. So we can tell a lot of data. We've got a lot of data, and we have close to 1 billion photographs that are tagged against rooms for our inspection products. So we have a wealth of data, and that data now, without having to employ data scientists and machine learning experts, we can simply use the API frameworks that are set up and are now actually usable to build out these particular business cases. Whereas before, absolutely no chance. We tried and we failed a lot, because it just took such a massive effort. It was so difficult for us to do. Whereas now it's much, much more simple, and all of our team are trained on AI. So all of them have a background and a grounding and standard frameworks by which to work. It's here, it's going to keep coming, and it's not going to stop.
Yep. All right, look, we might open it up to questions now. There's a backlog of questions here for us to answer, so I might just pick a couple of those. All right. First question is, you mentioned many corporations and customers are price sensitive. What would be the best way to map or plan out pricing models for subscription-based services?
It's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. And the thing is, you can always go up, but you can't go down. So that's the rationale I always focus on. You've got to sort of know what the customers are, what customers you're targeting. They're definitely price sensitive. Everyone's price sensitive. I think they've always been price sensitive, but more so now than before. So I would suggest, trying to work back from that perspective, because obviously you need to make money. Without making money, you don't have a business. So if you can't get to a point where you think this is how much someone's going to pay, and they actually pay it and it's less, you may not actually have a valid business in the first particular place. So that's always a very difficult thing. Pricing is so hard. You can do it on a per month, on a per quarter, on a per annum. You can charge licensing fees, you can charge SaaS fees. It's how you can make money out of what you've got. But I'd suggest the main thing I would say here is value. How are you going to show value? How are you going to show that return on investment? And take away the conversation from what does it cost to what value are you adding to the organization by doing these, or by utilizing these particular pieces of technology. But it's like putting your finger in the air and coming up with pricing a lot of the time. It is really, really difficult. It's one of the hardest things you'll have to do. And you most often will have to change it after you've done it, but never go backwards, always go up, not down.
I think there's some similarities with some product features as well, in that you want to have like a dollarized value that you perceive it being, and put that out and test it in the market. It gives you a benchmark to kind of get that feedback on. So yeah,
it's fun.
Okay. How important is it to sort of understand your product's USP before going to market? Unique selling proposition.
Yeah, look, I think what is in your mind as what the USP is and what the actual USP is can be a bit different. But I suppose it's, a lot of the time people that solve problems don't come from the industry. I've never been in property management, so I couldn't talk about the unique selling price and the unique selling components of the platform. I suppose it's trying to work out, if you have that expertise, if you've come from that industry, if you know these people, you know their pain points, you've got to focus on how you can deliver based on that value that I spoke of before, how you can deliver value, right? Because what people do is they come in, they say, look at all these features, and people go, oh, that's great. And after the second feature, their eyes glaze over because it doesn't make sense to them. Or, we were guilty of it. We had so many features, we had so many cool things, and we sold features, but people didn't understand features. Then we sold value. And we said, here's a return on investment calculator. By using our software, you're going to have a payback. And in some cases, the payback is 2 weeks out of 52 weeks if they use one of our platforms. Like it's a no-brainer. And you sit there and
That's
go,
hard right at that point, right? Yeah.
That's a unique selling proposition. You go, here it is. This is what I can do to add value. You can talk about cost reductions and time savings, and you can talk about whatever. But price and feature set are probably, in this day and age, stuff that is best left right for the end. It's how are you going to do it? How are you going to sell value? And how do you understand what the customers are looking for? You've got to solve their pain points. Then you can talk about those other parts after the fact.
I think particularly for selling to senior stakeholders as well, very easy to sell them on value, and then they can get into the detail, get one of their team to get into the detail of the specifics of features and solutions. But they're kind of just then validating that what you said was true around the value piece.
Correct. And that's most important, I think, especially where people are conscious of cost these days, more so than ever. So yeah, I would strongly advocate selling value rather than selling features.
Yep. Another question on pricing. Do you ever conduct experiments on pricing to see at what point interest starts to drop off? And if so, what kind of experiments do you run?
Yeah, look, we never really did much experimentation. Our experimentation was live in the field. It was like, did it work? Nope. Okay, let's quickly try and change it to something else. So I think the problem with experimenting on price is you don't really know, because you've got to talk to the people that are going to pay it. And I would strongly advocate not talking to people that know you, are friendly with you, and will tell you whatever you want to hear. You want to hear it from people that you have zero relationship with, because what tends to happen is, oh, Dane, you're my good friend. Hey, I've got this price. Do you think people would pay 25,000 bucks a year? Oh, for sure. It's a great idea. Maybe even more. So I get this false sense of security, and then I go and see somebody else and they say, 25 grand, are you crazy? I wouldn't pay $2,000 for this. So I think the experimentation needs to be done with real customers. Say, look, this is what we're thinking of charging, and have an honest and open conversation. Hey, I'd like you to join as one of our beta customers. You don't have to pretend you've got 1 million customers, because people can see through that as well. Just go and have an open and honest conversation. Look, this is what it's going to cost us to run our service. We need to make a bit of profit. We've got these developers. We're thinking about, 2,500. What do you think? What do you think about that? Would you pay that? Is that something that you think is fair and equitable? I just don't see how you do that in a lab, because they're not real people, and it's just a theoretical experiment, which unfortunately in my experiences tends to not really go anywhere. But each to their own, and each market to their own. I've just never participated in that. What I do is have a look at the competitors, see what's out in the market, see what they're paying for other systems and other solutions, and try and base myself to be slightly cheaper than those solutions. Because if they're a core system or whatever they rely on, it depends. Are you a core system? Are you an add-on system? Are you value adding? Are you cost adding? So work that out, and then you come up with a finger in the air and go, okay, this is what we're going to try for the pricing. And we've done that for all of the platforms in a slightly different way. And a great example, we originally started with one of our platforms a monthly pricing, and then people said, well, we prefer quarterly pricing because we get volumes during the course of a quarter. So we switched to that quarterly billing instead of monthly billing. And that's how we adjusted on the fly.
Nice. That danger of getting feedback from friends and family who think they're being encouraging or polite by saying how great your thing is can be incredibly damaging if that's the only source of feedback you're getting. Real customers putting real money on the line is definitely where it's at. Okay. Yeah. Do you ever worry about your competitors or new entrants to the market and So how do you keep ahead from a competitive standpoint?
Look, I suppose you always got to look at what your competitors are doing, but ultimately you don't want to copy. You want to leapfrog what they've done. So, a lot of the time they'll be stuck in one particular vertical, or they'll do something well, but other things they'll do poorly. So it's always good to keep a lens on your competitors, 100%. But at the same time, you need to be focused on the future. You need to say, well, my competitors have X and I've got Y. But once again, if I refer back to the original point, it's about showing your value. Because if they've got 5 extra features than you have, who cares, right? At the end of the day, the customers generally don't care about that. But you should always have your eye on what's going on, but not only your competitors as such. So, you know who your competitors are, but you've also got to be careful of other things that are outside that completely disrupt you. You look at the Microsofts or the Googles or the AWS of the world. If they decided to come and do what you're doing, would you have a chance? Would you be able to survive what they've done? So, it's a very narrow view if you're just looking at what your current competitors do, but I would suggest looking more macro level to see what's actually going on in the marketplace. And the best case of disruption, I suppose, was the digital camera. Everyone thought, oh, this digital camera, it's just a digital camera. No one's going to use it. It disrupted the old school camera. And now the digital camera is non-existent because it's in your phone. So who would have thought a phone would have disrupted a digital camera? These are the things you need to be considerate of. But don't spend all your time focusing backwards. Look a little bit backwards, but keep the journey going forwards.
I think definitely advocate kind of looking outside your industry as well, because some industries are just vastly ahead of others. And so if you're only competing in your small pool, sometimes you can rob yourself of all these wonderful ideas, best practices that might, with a little tweak, apply to your space. And I think that's one of the advantages or one of the things I really enjoy about kind of the formation experience is just the variety of industry. You get exposure to a bunch of these sort of different ideas. I'm just conscious of time there as we come up towards the end. I guess just in closing, Raph, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of, is there one final piece of advice or tip for entrepreneurs or leaders looking at a platform, embarking on a platform build that you'd give to them?
Yeah, look, I think the main thing is just never give up. It's a damn hard slog, and if you've taken the step and you're going to do your own thing, you've got to keep going. I think Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going. And that's unfortunately a lot of the time what it's like. You have days where it's completely amazing and you've got elation, and the next day you're dealing with staff or churn issues or drama or platform not working or whatever the case is. No matter what, you just got to keep driving forward and be as determined as possible to push and to go as hard as you can and to not give up and to do more than anyone else. So, while my competitors are sleeping, I'm up punching the keys and I'm building stuff and I'm pushing harder and I'm investing more capital in other things that you can possibly do. So never give up, push as hard as you can, be completely focused on your idea, but also be flexible if it's not going to work. And pivot, make those changes.
It is incredibly hard to beat someone who never quits. And I think there's a lot of people in tech that talk the talk, but you certainly walk the walk. So thanks again, Rafa, for joining us and for sharing your wealth of knowledge. I think there's plenty of takeaways there for anyone considering a software build. And for anyone in the audience that's looking for help with any of the things discussed today around getting the product market fit or software development as a process, R&D, AI implementation, please do feel free to book a free consult with our head of strategy, head of delivery, head of engineering. We'll share an email afterwards with the booking link, and I'll also pop that into the chat as well. I'd like to do that. But in closing, Raph, thank you so much. That was awesome. Really enjoyed the chat as always. And thanks again for your time.
No worries. Thanks very much. And thanks for joining, everybody. Have a great day.
Cheers, Raph. Bye.
Cheers. See you guys. Bye.